Hey everyone, as I'm recovering here, I just wanted to I came across this video. It was from the captain of the Moscow Police Department and some statements that he said on December 31st. And it's weird because nobody's really talked about it, but he kind of goes into detail. This is prior to Bryan Kohberger coming back, not fighting extradition, and willingly coming back to Idaho. So you'll hear the captain go into whether, Bryan is going to be coming, back voluntarily, or if it's going to be a fight. They're waiting to hear from the attorney, yada, yada, yada. So disregard that. This is an older video. For those that are just tuning in, I'm BULLHORNBETTY. I look like crap because I feel like crap. I'm not feeling well today. And I'm still covering the case of the Idaho 4, which is 4 university students that were killed on their off-campus housing in Mascow, Idaho. They all attended the University of Idaho, and we're all out and about the evening of November 12th. They came in the early morning hours of November 13th, and it is believed that they were killed between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. on November 13th, which is much different than the 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. time window we have been told for months, for 50 some odd days at least. Now we're learning a lot of new information, and so I'm going back and reviewing some of the stuff I didn't have an opportunity to review before, and one of those is this captain's statement. So we're going to go ahead and play it now, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
The police department believes that the person we have in custody, which would be Kohberger, is the one who's responsible for these crimes. We are still continuing to investigate, and certainly we're looking into all aspects, but he has been named as our suspect, and we believe he is the one that is responsible. We got word directly after the press conference yesterday that we had already received 400 calls into the tip line after we made that request. So the outpouring of information from the public was immediate. Now that we have a suspect, we're going to be investigating every aspect of him that we can absolutely find out. And that's why we asked yesterday for the public's help, and we got 400 phone calls within the first hour after the press conference, which is great. But we're trying to build this picture now of him, who he is, his history, how we got to this event, why this event occurred, all those other answers to the questions that we still remain. We're going to try to answer those. So that's where the investigation is certainly going to be focused on now for the time being, into the future. As far as procedurally, we're waiting on this extradition in the short term. We have to see what happens next week, what he and his attorney decide to do as far as waiving extradition or fighting extradition. And then we just have to go from there and wait to see what the outcome is. The city of Moscow is a very safe place to live, and always has been since I've lived here. And the unfortunate aspect of an event like this is that it just continues to show that these horrible things can happen anywhere, whether it's a big city or a small town, Mascow, Idaho. Nowhere is immune to these horrible acts. And as Chief Fry stated, we should always be vigilant and always be aware of our surroundings and paying attention to our security. But this event certainly has shaken this town to its core. Knowing after yesterday that we had someone in custody, I can say, especially for myself, but I know I talked to Chief Fry earlier, he's the same, and I'm sure many others. We had the best night of sleep we've had in quite some time last night. And so it's bittersweet. We're very excited the fact that we were able to locate Mr. Kohberger and bring him into custody, but we all still feel the sadness and the sorrow of this event, and we feel still horrible for the families and the loss of their loved ones.
So as you notice, law enforcement, they were expressing their concerns. This was prior to the gag order on investigators and law enforcement. Again, that didn't happen until I believe January 4th. I could be a little foggy on those details with specificity of the dates. However, I do know that this was recorded on December 31st, 2022. And the gag order, the order that's preventing law enforcement, investigators, district attorney, and the prosecutor from making any statements publicly that could hinder or jeopardize this case. So this is obviously a law enforcement agent. This is somebody that did actively work on this case. However, this statement was made prior to that, so he's not in any kind of violation for making this statement. A couple things that he did discuss in this video was the amount of leads that came in immediately once Bryan Kohberger was announced. Some 400 plus tips that came in. He talked about how they're just trying to garner any information they can on the history, the behaviors of Bryan Kohberger. And while we're not going to be getting that information, I guarantee there are things being funneled in to their FBI tip line, as well as the Mascow Police Department tip line, and the email address set up for both of those. So, you know, it's pretty interesting. He also goes on to say they're trying to answer the questions on how we got here. How did we get to this point? He talks about that Mascow is a safe place to live. When I was there, I mean, outside of this horrific event, I felt safe. It was a nice, quaint town. It was, for me, a safe place to hang out, to do my work. You know, it was cute. The people were friendly. So I do believe that this did rock that community to the core. He also, you know, further explains that it is a small community, and this type of crime can happen to anyone, big cities and small towns like Mascow. So, you know, I think the sentiments is no matter where you are, or who you are, how old you are, you need to be vigilant of your surroundings. You need to be aware of what is going on in and around where you're at. Please let me know what your thoughts are with this captain speaking up about the case a little bit, providing a little bit of insight, a little bit of information, you know, to what law enforcement were thinking, and some information that we didn't know, like the leads piling in since Bryan Kohberger had been arrested and detained and publicly, you know, confirmed and stated as being the prime suspect in the case of this quadruple homicide in Mascow, Idaho. He traveled. This is another weird thing that happened, and I'm curious to find out what your thoughts are on this. You know, his father took a plane from his house all the way to Washington State University to pick up his son and help his son drive the car back to Pennsylvania. Do you guys think that that's suspect? You know, everything I know about Bryan Kohberger, he seems to be a manipulator, a conner, you know, very cunning. He, you know, is very charming. Could he have told his dad a wild story as to why he needed him to come back and pick him up? You know, was he saying, you know, maybe I really don't want to stay here for another semester. Let's go ahead and get my car home, and we can decide what we're going to do for second semester and see where I'm going to go. And maybe that's what triggered his father to come back and drive him back, because to me it seems like if he was planning on coming back to Washington State University, you know, for financial reasons, monetary reasons, it seemed like it would have been much cheaper for him just to fly home and have his parents pick him up from the airport, and then, you know, once Christmas vacation was over, fly back. Many kids do that. To take a 43-hour drive, that seems a little extensive. And not only that, how is he planning on getting that car back to the university when it was time for him to start a second semester? So I still have a lot of those types of questions. Put in the comments your questions. Let's see if I can start trying to help and answer some of your questions. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you guys for all the wonderful well wishes. I know I feel absolutely horrible today. I'm hoping that everything goes well. I can get some good rest tonight so we can start our coffee club. first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. So justice for the victims. Keep them in your prayers. And keep all the people in your prayers. I mean, Bethany and Dylan went through a lot as well. While I'm very highly upset with some of the actions Dylan made, again, we don't know the reason. There may be a viable explanation for all of this, that once we hear everything, the light bulb goes off and we say, okay, we get it now. But, I'm still upset about that because, these were people's lives. And for me, we try to do everything we can to save them, but we have to remember these are young people that were put in an extraordinary situation, and sometimes they just, you can't think. So we'll see how this all turns out. God bless each and every one of you, and have a good evening.